What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode in the Unleashed Potential podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Haji, as always, alongside Mr. Jabbar and Hassan. How you guys doing?
Alhamdulillah, man. We're doing good.
We're a man light this week.
Yeah, man. The man Oms can't be here.
Inshallah, we'll be here next week.
Inshallah.
What about you guys? How you guys been?
I've been good, man. Just a regular week.
Yeah.
You know, I've been on holidays, so that week back is always just that.
Yeah,
catch up.
how's your trip?
It was good. The trip was good. We talked about it last week, so I don't want to rehash it all. But this week has just been picking up extra days at work,
Readjusting,
getting back
to it.
Yeah.
No, mashallah. What about you, Omar Hassan?
Well, I just been with the family, man, and just working, and I don't know. Just it hasn't been an exciting week. It's just been a casual week, I would say. Filled with work and family and all of that.
The usual.
Yeah, and then you've got the weather that just pretty much kept us indoors most of the time,
Yeah,
you know?
it's that weird.
It's only now started to clear up a little bit, but yeah, man, it's been good
Forecast
nonetheless.
says, inshallah, next week should be a bit sunny.
Inshallah, but we'll flip-flop since it's spring for a little while. Until we get that amazing heat that comes through.
I'm just ready for barbecue season, man.
Yeah. Where are we hooking it up?
We're always asking that question.
Actually,
you know, we loop around, come back to the same discussion.
Always about a barbecue.
Where we hooking it up again?
Yeah,
who's bringing the meat? Who's bringing the barbecue?
That's exactly how it is.
And nothing gets done about it.
No, we usually have an annual one normally. I think that stopped. We used to have an annual one. It stopped like a couple years ago. We used to have it at Burswood.
Yes, we used to. But see, since I moved back from Sydney, I still have the urge and the drive to do all these outdoor activities, but you cannot get two people on the same roster.
Yeah, I know.
The same schedule.
I know.
Because back in Sydney, when we lived there, it was just a straight Monday to Friday. Weekends, everybody pretty much has it off, you know. So you can always schedule it with something. Now,
even public holidays. Yeah.
Oh, even public holidays. So a long weekend, you knew the first thing is okay, well, one day goes to the family.
That's right.
The other 2 days, I can go and come back from somewhere at the very least, or do something one of the days. Now it's like people are working public holidays, people working different shifts, different days. So everybody sits down and wants to do something, but it never really happens.
And that's why we keep coming back to the same
question.
loops.
But inshallah soon it'll be different. But yeah, I heard you saying that amazing heat. I disagree with you. I do not like the heat at all.
Oh, you don't have to like it to think it's an amazing
it is. It is too hot, but it depends where you are.
Hot.
Like if you're near the coastal beach area,
you get that nice breeze.
It's okay, man. It's nice. You end up enjoying it, and plus, I don't know, man. Like with the heat, it just brings a whole bunch of people out. So then you feel like, the city is not actually dead.
It's not as dead as it is. Yeah. Nah, but
I think that's it. Like to me, the main reason why I like summer, well, other than the fact I'm used to it because I'm from here, but it's the fact that I like doing outdoor activities. That's what I like, whether it's cold or not. But you can't really do that much in the winter because, like you said, it's hard enough. Yeah. When it's raining outside, no one's coming out.
Yeah. No, I like sunny days. Yeah, but the heat that we experience, especially like Australia, Perth. I'm talking the extreme.
Yeah, I mean, once it pushes past 35 degrees Fahrenheit, then
that's too much. Yeah.
Degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's
that's
just
anybody
too much.
and everybody. But as long you say alhamdulillah, it's not humid.
Yeah.
We don't got that humidity.
Yeah, no,
that's different.
That would be different. That would be a different kind of torture.
I can't stand that.
Yeah, no. But mashallah, let's get into today's topic. I think today's topic is going to be
it's a big one.
It's going to bring out some deep thoughts and opinions and views. And today we're discussing a topic that some of us can relate to. I think most of us can relate to in some way, shape, or form. Whether you experience it or know somebody that has experienced it. I think it's a global issue, and that's racism. Racism, and the different kinds that are there, and the different types of racism. I'm gonna shoot the first question to you, Jabbar.
Me?
Yes. What is racism?
Well, I think there's racism and there's prejudice, and it's a bit different. But to me, generally, if you're just judging someone just by appearance, whether that be ethnic, like wherever they're from, religion, anything like that, I kind of encompass it all as one. Like you could get to the definition of there's so many different types of racism, then there's prejudice, and then there's this and that you can break it down. But just generally judging someone and disliking them based on whether it be stereotypes, the way you were raised, even though it's just right or wrong, that all of that is just wrong, and that's what it is to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think racism is, and I'll go a step further, and that is when one race basically views themselves as superior or views the other race as inferior
Yeah.
to themselves. And then there's that, like you mentioned earlier, before we started this podcast, and that was the idea of having different levels of racism. And it goes sometimes to the point where it's systematic racism. So you've got policies and things that are put in place that actually they discriminate against a certain race or a certain group of people.
Yeah, if you look through I think the ages, there was racism with force, actual physical harm, violence. But then now it's transitioned into more, as you said, structural and systematic racism, where now it's like the system or like, and I think you mentioned as well, justice system is all built against.
Yeah, I remember when I was in America, there was some of the guys coming down from the wedding from someone who's in Sydney, some guys coming down from America, and we were talking about it, and one of the things that like shocked me was the so we have like suburbs here, you got different Sterling, whatever it is, and it's generally pretty easy to see on a map. It's like a rectangle or a circle or whatever it is, it's just a grid. In America it's not, it's like really funny shapes. It kind of goes round and stuff like that, and the reason is because they get funding and stuff like that, so they go around all the poor neighborhoods and stuff like that, and they literally grid them off. And if you just look at a map, you can just clearly go, yeah, that's just racism straight up. It's not even hidden or none of that. And you just look at it and you go, that's racism. And it's systematic. It's in the system. It's the way they do it, And a lot of people will sit here and go, it doesn't affect me. They need to do this. They need to improve. And yes, if you're in a poor position or whatever it is, you still got to stand for yourself. But you also got to take that foot off your neck that's keeping you down as well.
Yeah. Sorry. You were going to say something?
No.
So if we break down racism into some smaller compartments, what smaller compartments would you categorize it into?
I think you've got the racism that isn't as clear, like
underhanded.
I think that's the most.
You know what I mean? That's the one that's very hard to pick up.
Yeah.
Even the person that's doing it doesn't even know that they're doing it intentionally. Like for example, someone might be, shortlisting some applicants for a particular position, and then just from seeing a name or just from seeing a face, they automatically, they push it to the side, and then so there's that one, right?
Yep.
That's very hard to pick up on, and I think
subtle,
nowadays
that
it's actually really subtle nowadays because
super subtle.
You get people like, for example, you might walk into a bus or a train and you're sitting somewhere, right? And you've got an empty seat, but somebody else, like you're of another race, a European or whatever, might just walk up and not want to sit with you simply because, I don't know, whether they fear you or they're discouraged by you or something like that.
Or like you walk across somebody on the bus and they just clutch their little purse.
Yeah, or they cross the street. It's these things that they don't necessarily know what they're doing, and they don't realize it. But you've got that, and then there's the other level, which is basically direct, right in your face, And I think it comes from a place of ignorance. It's just not understanding exactly what they're saying and what they're doing. It's just being uneducated, I would say.
Yeah, I think.
And then it goes a little bit further, and it starts to reach that systematic racism, where now it's something that even normal citizens can't necessarily control, because it's ingrained in the law, and it's ingrained in policies and procedures. That it affects everyday.
I think I'll chuck another one in there, and then there's the people that they get rich off. They have like an investment in it, whether it be housing or whatever it is. They make money. They make profit off of sort of racism, even when they don't believe it. But they'll choose to make policies. They'll choose to side, because you see people that are poor and they're fighting for certain rights and stuff like that, and then they'll be millionaires, and then they go in the other way because it makes them more money. You can clearly see that there's people that are holding their tongue, not doing anything, and even supporting the other side just for personal gain.
But staying silent is equally as dangerous as the act itself. But so now if we take those different groups and really look at some of the ramifications, some of the effects that it has. One of the major things I would see, and I've seen a few times, is especially that one where you mentioned the subtle racism, especially when it affects people's careers, job applications. Like you will turn up to a room, for an interview where there's, two other white dudes and yourself, and there's an application, there's availability for 2 spots. 9 out of 10 times, they'll both get it. You might be more qualified or whatnot, but do these people, without being, in your face about it, like make you feel you're not in the right place kind of thing? That is pretty dangerous. I was looking at, and I don't want to get too political here, but when this whole Donald Trump election was gone, and you had a lot of these people that were just full of hate, and there was this one journalist who, white, went around to some of the really vigorous supporters, and really started talking to them and asking them questions like, why do you feel this way? What has been done to you? And it really breaks it down to them. And the ones that it really gets through to always end up saying, oh, is it like that? Really? In that case, they're not so bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it really comes down from a place of just ignorance rather than straight hate for something that you've done.
Well, that comes from the systematic racism, because, like, obviously when you break it down to certain people and you take that thing and you just sit them down with it, it's different, because there'll be people in the government saying, because there'll be hate and disparity and whatever it is and rage, and they'll use that to fuel their racism. Like, oh, there's someone to blame. It's the Mexicans. Oh, you don't have a job? That person's to blame. You don't have this? That person's to blame. And I'm fighting for you, someone that's similar to them. And that's what they go for. They go for that cause rather than actually educating themselves. And it's true, because the people that are less educated are easier to herd. One way, and that's why.
Well, racism is taught. Like Morgan Freeman that said it, or Nelson Mandela? I don't know.
One of them.
One of them. One black guy.
Can't tell the difference now, eh?
That's it. No, he basically said, racism is actually taught. It's not something that you're born with. Like if you have 2 babies of different race. Put them in a room, or raise them together.
Best friends.
Yeah, they're going to be best friends. Yeah. And it's only later on, once they get ingrained in society, that they start to pick out and notice, okay, this person has a certain level of privilege and this person has a certain level of restriction, And then they realize, oh, that whole race structure exists. That's when they start to operate within that construct. And it makes it harder, because they're not opting in for that education. They're just being taught it.
See, I was having a conversation with a work friend of mine, and I don't know, somehow we ended up on this topic, and white privilege, right? And how that really, like, we were talking about it, and this guy's argument was, firstly, I don't believe in white privilege, and then his second point was, if I am privileged, like, does that make it my fault? How do you guys answer that?
Well, I think you have... no, it doesn't make it your fault, but the fact that you're reaping the benefits of it means you should be responsible for changing the tide and turning it towards the greater good, right? So if it was your ex, parents or whatever, or your forefathers... that committed these crimes, and you're still reaping the benefits of it, and you have no way of actually handing over those benefits, so that then you should be actually, held responsible to a certain level of, accountability, where you should be, like, one, educating yourself so that you're aware of those privileges, right? 2, getting involved so that you are actually communicating and start advocating for these things. Like, you should be on the side of those who are actually fighting for it. And so just saying that it's not my fault, but then reaping the benefits,
doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, you should be paying for it as well.
Yeah, if your dad robbed $1 million off me and then he died and gave it to you, you can't just go, that's not my problem, and walk away with the money. Yeah. Like, you have to give back. And because I know there is white privilege, and they're still reaping the benefits today, large communities of them. So you have that duty to give back.
Yeah. Like, if you realize the fact that you've got that privilege, you should be trying to right those wrongs rather than keep reaping the benefits of it and keep like the next generation from keeping those privileges so that they can continue to say the same thing you said, which is, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody's fault.
Somebody's accountable. Yeah. Somebody should be accountable, and be making the right move. One thing, alhamdulillah, that I don't know if we do really face here I've got no, as far as I know, we don't really see much of it happening in Australia. But another really dangerous effect of systematic racism is gentrification, if I said it correctly, when they move out certain group of people from an area. How does that work, and how deadly is that?
Well, it's pretty deadly. It happens a lot in the States and not much here. I'm not really educated too much here. It does happen here. I think
in Sydney, I think it used to happen in Redfern, for example. Redfern was like full of Aboriginals at one point in time. And then you got like a mass influx of white people that just sort of dominated that whole area, and slowly, because I think it was public housing in certain areas in Redfern. They started, being demolished and sold to these, Europeans that actually came in and tried to make it more Europeanized, and so now you'd see less Aboriginals, in Redfern, and so the house prices obviously shoot up because now you've got supposedly civilized people, right, living there. But yeah, that whole thing, I think mainly it does happen in the US. It might happen in some places here, but I don't know. You'd have to sit down and actually study it and try and understand how it's happening, because it's something that happens over a long period of time. Yeah. It's not something that's just done overnight or in an instance, so...
it has happened here, not on the scale. I definitely don't believe it's on the scale, but it has happened here. And it's true. It's not just the housing, but people work. They live near where they work. They get jobs near where they work. And when that rent price starts going up and stuff like that, and you got to move, especially with us as communities, a lot of the ethnics stay in their little pocket. They have a community. They got family nearby, and having to uproot all of that and to move just because other people want to make more profit off the area is.
And then going to a less established area where you're not used to what's going on, who's there, or the infrastructure is not great enough. That is
Well, I'm trying to think about it here. I think a lot to do with it here in Perth more has to do with monetary, because Perth is so small and places are still close to the city. As it's growing, the prices are going up, and that just kind of makes sense. But you never know if it is underlining.
But that affects, I think, everybody as a whole, doesn't it?
It does.
Rather than a certain group of people being pushed out of an area.
That's true.
Take a look, Mirrabooka, for example. Mirrabooka is quite ethnic based, right? Yeah. At least from our perspective. If you go there, you're bound to see someone from your cultural background. Yeah. But then if the next 20, 50 years, slowly those ethnics start to fade away, those restaurants start to close down, and new ones open up that cater to Europeans. Yeah. And then slowly, now you're walking in Mirrabooka 20 years later and you don't even see one person from your cultural background. Yeah. In fact, when you're walking there, those Europeans are just crossing the street because they're scared of you, you know? So, and it's even more expensive to actually live there. And now it's considered as something that's, a nice place to live, when previously it wasn't, simply because it was, it was a whole bunch of low income people, or actually even then I wouldn't even consider them to be low income. Class. They're just middle class, they're just normal people. But it's just that perception that they view them because they're ethnics, they must be low income. You know what I mean? It's just
Let's talk about a point that you raised early on, which is, and I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between the two, because they are a bit different. Racism and prejudice. What's the difference? How do they differ, and what's the similarities?
I don't know the exact difference, but from my understanding, I think prejudice is when you sort of base your judgment before you know the person or the have any experience with that particular judgment at all. So you're basically equating a certain trait without any evidence at all to that particular race, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Stereotype kind of.
Yeah. So
racism
you'd stereotype someone without having met anyone from that race, without having had any experience, simply because like that's just your prejudgment of that person. You know, I think that is what prejudice is.
It can be something small, like if you're tall, you should be good at this sort of sport, you know, basketball, whatever it is. You know, if you're black, you can run fast. It's, you know, you don't have to hate that person for it, but you're judging like what that person's personality and characteristics are going to be just based on what you see, like a turban or something,
without knowing anything about that person.
Whereas
racism is actually
hate and
not even the fact that it comes from hate. It's about that superiority. It's when you see them. Okay, this person is lower than me. They're lower class now, and then on top of that, you benefit from viewing them like that on a regular basis as well.
You treat them a certain way because of that.
That's very true. So let me ask you guys this: can black people be racist? That's a question a lot of people ask, and a lot
who though?
Just in general, they can.
That's I think that's a key question, because if you're saying can black people be racist towards white, no, I don't think black people view themselves as superior, you know, over the white people, because they're actually fighting for that same issue. They're like, black people's complaint is that Europeans are seeing them as inferior towards them, right? And there's a system in place that keeps promoting that idea, and then they're benefiting off that system. On top of that, black people are not benefiting off that system. It's actually to their disadvantage. And secondly, they're not viewed as that, right? And there's no, like, you look at the media, for example. If you've got a white criminal or you've got a black criminal, chances are the black criminal is going to be painted completely different to the one that's European. So no, towards white people, no, they can't be racist. I don't think so.
Which then leads to the whole justice system and the sentencing will be completely
that's on a
different.
whole. I think that's black people on a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
In general, I've met individual black people that think they're superior to whites, as in like the race is superior due to skin color, whatever it is, just that pure racism. I've met quite a few.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're definitely out there. And there is
yet to meet on
towards whites, yes, and a lot towards other races as well. I've been to like Saudi Arabia, and
I've seen people that sort of say that like they're pro-black, but just being pro-black doesn't mean that you're anti-white in a way.
I know, I 100% agree what you say. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm saying personally, I've met people that do believe that they're actually superior.
Okay.
And like that's what I meant. The majority don't believe that because they've been
but then take it another notch, right? They believe that they're superior, but do they benefit from that belief?
No, they don't.
No. So it fails that second test.
The second test, they don't have the ability to put in that systematic.
That's right. They don't have that power.
Right, but so that doesn't mean they're not.
No, so they've got that belief, that racist belief, but they can't put it into action.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I think that's where it gets cut off. Whereas the Europeans, they actually can.
Yeah.
They can put it into action, and that's where it becomes dangerous.
And that like it just takes so many different avenues, because you've got you know religious racism or hate that now is really prevalent in the world today. Like anybody that's wearing, you know, either a thobe or a big beard commits a crime, they're automatically labeled something now, whereas a white man commits the same crime or worse is now a lone you know, maybe insane criminal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that being ethnic and then having a certain religion and then being looked at in so many different ways because of the way you look and what you believe in, and then still be expected to run this race that we all call life fairly and not complaining about all the obstacles that you have. Like, that's what we're here to discuss today. Like, us right now, we're black, we're Muslims, we live in Australia, which is white dominant and non-Muslim, right? But we're expected to go through life without complaining about all the obstacles that we may face and get to the same finish point, you know what I mean? And I reckon it really takes a lot of strength and courage to just persevere, and not to say that we live in a place where, you know, it could be much worse. It could be much worse. Like, alhamdulillah. Not to say that now we've got anybody, you know, yelling on the side of the streets, you know. Although I remember 10, 15 years ago, it used to happen every now and then. Like, I'd remember walking with my aunt, and out of nowhere, we'll just hear some madman yelling. And the first time you're like, maybe he was yelling at somebody else or whatnot. But then sometimes people slow down and they would yell at you. And this is 10, 15 years back. But then now, 10, 15 years later, I see where we're at now. And I rarely see it. Maybe, I don't know, I'm driving all the time and I'm not walking on the street anymore. But it's changed, you know what I mean? And
I think as you go through life, you're sort of exposed to different levels of that racism, and I think that's the issue.
Well, I think something to have to do with that is, I think people's phones have a big thing to do with that. Because before, if someone's yelling in a bus, some racist stuff at you, it was just everyone in the bus hears it, and it might just be some talk, some gossip. Yeah. Now you say that, someone's got a camera phone, you're on YouTube, you might lose your job, so it's moved more to the subtle racism because of that, because it's people are more out there, people get exposed a lot more, people lose jobs and stuff like that, because nowadays when you start a job, they're looking at your Facebook, they're looking at your Instagram, they're googling, they're looking at your web footprint to see what type of person you are, and if that's a bad look, you're not working.
I can understand that.
There are people that still risk it though.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
They are.
And some of them don't even what gets me the most is the ones that actually don't understand what they're saying. That when they say it like that they're coming from a place of ignorance, or they're being racist without actually knowing it. Like, for example, I had this one passenger, right, at this one point in time, and he's a European guy, and I was talking to him, about just life in general, and then he says to me, so where are you from? And I said to him, I'm from Ethiopia. He goes, oh, that's lovely. And then for some reason, these Europeans, they have, and I'm not going to generalize and say all of them, but the ones that I've come across, most of the time, whenever they talk about my background, Ethiopia or anything like that, I know what's coming next. It's either they've visited, or they know someone that's visiting, or they mention someone that they know that's from a different country that's within Africa. Like, I know somebody who's from Kenya, and I'm like, what's that got to do with it? Like, I don't understand. Are you trying to say to me that you're black friendly? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. What is it? Anyway, so
the next one is sorry to cut you off there. It's like you speak really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, how long have you been here? I'm like,
not even that. When they walk up to you, go, excuse me, and they're speaking really slowly to you, like you don't understand English, and you just like,
Anyways, and then so this guy, he goes, so where you from? And I said, I'm from Ethiopia. And he goes, oh, that's really nice. Hey, and he had, his two sons in the back as well. I don't think they were switched on at all. Anyways, he says to them, so what's her name? That Margaret lady or whatever, Yeah, she's in Uganda at the moment. And then he turns to me and says, Uganda can be a bit dodgy, can't it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, first of all, you've never been. The only thing is, someone and you barely know that person because you can't even remember their name properly that has been there. And the fact that they've gone there shows that it's not actually dodgy. So what made you come to that conclusion?
And what links you to Uganda?
It makes no sense whatsoever.
They're from Europe.
He's Australian as well.
He's Australian. You should ask him about how.
No, so what I said to him was, well, anywhere you go can be dodgy. You know what I mean? Like here in Australia, you can find some dodgy places, that are full of Europeans and non-ethnic. So I think and the fact that he sort of didn't know what he was saying. Like, I knew that this guy said something racist, but at the same time he didn't realize because it's so ingrained that they just, I don't know, they're just so accustomed to it that they just let it out without realizing.
I think it also comes from a place of trying to, like you said, be black friendly, like to show that I'm not racist. I either have some sort of connection, I know something about where you're from or where you're coming from. Like some of them really ask stupid questions like, what language they speak in Africa? Yeah, but Africa's not one country with one language. You know what I mean?
I know.
You gotta understand. Like, it goes back to like what I was saying before. There's like that different level of prejudice and people benefiting off racism and stuff like that without knowing it, because that guy might be living in one of those places that have been gentrified, that's just Europeans around. He might have a good job where there's all white people around. He's school, he went to school in a white school and stuff like that. So this person wouldn't know all that stuff. So he might see some stuff on the TV and some white people are racist and stuff. So when he sees a black person, he's like, I don't want to I don't want to be portrayed like those guys. And let me relate. And so now they're just pulling at straws that they don't know, and they're fumbling and making that. Yeah. Rather than, like, there are people that are in that camp, but they're smarter just to ask you. Because, you know, you can ask, where are you from? How is it there? Don't go, oh, I have a friend that went there that you don't know. He said it's nice. You don't know nothing about the place. Ask. You're talking to the person. You know?
I know.
You were going to raise a point about as you grow in life, you experience different forms of racism.
Yeah, you do. It's just, you know, when you mentioned that little statement saying, I don't know if it was because I got a car now that I, you know, so it just made me think. I'm like, yeah, that's actually true. Whenever you go through a certain period of your life, or you change or you grow, you get exposed to a different circle, and that circle has its own level of racism, you know. So for example, if you're in a position in life where you're just walking, you might not be exposed to police racism as much. You might be exposed, like I know, for example, for me, when I was in New Zealand, at times I would be waiting at a bus stop for at least 15, 20 minutes, you know, waiting for a bus, and I'd be the only person there because it's quite a, you know, quiet place. So you'd get the bus driver sort of just driving up, looks at you, and then just keeps driving past. And you'll sit there saying, well, what's going on? What just happened? Did I not flag him? I literally flagged him, like, you know, non-stop with my hand out. But it happens, you know, it happens like that. And then if you're in a place where you've got a car, for example, then you might get exposed to that police racism, you know, where they'll just ask you, that you get pulled over. We're just doing random checks. It seems to be you're the only random person they're checking, you know. Or if you're traveling, you might get that airport, you know. And then if, for example, you're in a more public place like trains or something like that, where it's just a whole bunch of people walking in at one time, you might get, you know, a certain level of racism.
Body language.
Yeah, body language, the way they look at you. Who knows, you know what I mean? That's not to say all of them, but, you know, as you move different or progress, different stages. Sometimes you might be at uni, right? Sit down, and then somebody next to you might just be saying something completely racist, and you're right there. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't realize that it's racist. Yeah. You know, so
I think that's the most dangerous form, when they don't realize it's actually racist. I think that's really, really dangerous.
Well, yeah, because I think that's due to entertainment. Like, they make everything so entertaining, and people want to, like, connect to that entertainment, and they'll just cling on to it, and it becomes cool. And that just becomes like the way it is, and it becomes so normal. For example, rap music and saying the N-word. They all say it, you know, and then if you ask them, it's like they all lie about it. So it's like, some people will say, oh, you know, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, or I don't say it. Like, why don't you say it? Because it's racism, it's terrible. They give you all the reasons why it's so bad, yet they'll be singing it later, and then they'll be going, it's just a song. You know, they get that whole, it differs.
It's just about giving themselves that free pass.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I love the looks. I've got a few mates at work that listen to rap music or whatnot, and you know, sometimes after work they'll turn on their car and they got the rap music, you know, and then just when the N-word's about to come up, I'm just looking at them, just looking, and they go pale for a split second because they're rapping, and then the flow, sometimes they either off guard or they just buckle. I just love seeing that, you know. I just love seeing that, because for me, like it's not out of a place of hate. For me, it's like, I know you, you know, we have that bit of laughing.
It's not just that. It's like when you go, like when I go back home, I'll go to like an ethnic place, and you get treated a little bit nicer than, you know, maybe the Europeans and stuff. They go there, and you're like, you feel for it because you go through that. But sometimes you're kind of like, well, you know, sometimes I need a bit.
I don't know about you. Wherever you go, the white man usually gets treated better than, you know, the person going to his home country for some reason. There was a story about, for example, I think it was Oprah Winfrey. I don't know if this is validated as true or anything, but there was a story about Oprah Winfrey going back to Ethiopia, and she walked into the Sheraton Hotel, and then the assistants, they came to her crew first before going to Oprah. You know, and they asked, can we take your luggage? Because they're all European, you know, can we help you and this and that? They didn't realize until later that this is Oprah Winfrey. And then they were like, oh, but we messed up. You know?
How do you come back from that?
Yeah, that's
but that has to do with like money. Because when I went there, I had a bit of money. other people
Yeah,
in
but
general, and then that's
it's
Who's got
that
more money and
preconceived.
fame than
no, I'm not talking about that story.
Yeah,
I'm talking
oh,
about me
yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
I've been treated better.
Yeah.
Like I literally had a time where I went into a restaurant, right, and I was there first, and then the like a white person was standing behind me, and then they got called forward in front of before me. They got called forward. I'm looking at the person like this. I knew one of the workers there, right, and then the worker comes and whispers into his ear, and then he argues back to my mate, and then after a little exchange, I get sent first, and I was like, "What's going on?" Because he's just a worker. He's not like high ranking and everything. He just asked, "Hey, let the guy through." And the guy's like, "Nah, like these guys will pay more." Is what he told them.
Yeah, but what's to say that you won't pay more?
And then that's what they just racism. But the second, no, what I'm saying is the second.
It's not just about money. I think
the second I know what you're talking about, but I'm saying the second.
But I get it. I get it.
The second he told them like, no, he's from Australia. He's got some money. I got treated the whole night though. I got treated way better than the rest of them. You see what I mean? Like, obviously, the first thing they see when they see skin color back there is, oh, damn, people's white, they might have money, and they tend to that. But I'm talking about when, the whole point I was bringing about is when you see it happen the other way around. Yeah. Like, it hit me. You know what I mean? Because I know it's happening. I can see it happen. Yeah. I don't know how it feels on the other end. When you're seeing that bus driver that drive past, you really think that he's thinking, or the people on the bus are not standing up and going, hey, why didn't you stop for that guy? They just kind of watch and go, all right. Yeah. You know?
It's not me that it's affecting.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not me. Yeah. But with us, like, if you see a black person, like a brother or whatever it is, being discriminated, or a woman with a hijab that you don't know, you step up straight away because we know how it feels and we got to kind of stick together.
That's because, and you actually, you said it in the sentence, when you see a brother, and that's the thing, like we always see other black people as brothers, regardless of where they're from.
We do that head nod.
Yeah,
so it's random.
Just a little head but we don't do that back home,
I've tried doing that to white people. I was walking with a friend, this is like back in the days at uni, I'm walking and there'll be some random person walking and I'll nod and the black dude will nod back and everything. And there was always like, oh, do you know that guy? I'm like, no, you know that guy? And they go, oh, why don't you, we brought this whole thing up, like, why don't you bring it? I go, okay, I'll show you. White guy walks by, I look at him and he kind of looks at me like this. Like,
that's why.
Who are you? I don't know you.
That's why.
And I was like, you see what I mean?
And plus, we're in a sea of Europeans. When you see and spot another black person,
regardless of what, there's that sense of like comfort, security, anything happens, I got you.
Because you've got similar cultural backgrounds in a way. It's not going to be extremely different. You know what I mean?
That black dude's not going to ask you.
You can relate with a lot of things.
It's not going to happen.
Do you speak English? Yeah, he's not going to ask you that.
And equate you to Uganda.
That's it. I know someone from
I'm from. It's funny, but I think that should cover us for this week. It's been a lovely chat with you guys.
We can keep going.
We can keep going.
I think we should actually extend this to a different topic as well, and that is
break it in.
Break it into like part 2, which will basically be like, is there racism amongst our community and amongst the Islamic community? Because can we be racist to each other in a way? Like you've got, for example, the Somali tribe, the tribalism. Is that another form of racism?
That is a major topic.
And then you've got that the Islamic community itself, where it might be that
different.
Walking into a masjid, you get treated, like a certain level of racism. It's indirect. I don't know. Like that might be another topic we should
definitely. That's so many different topics which I think we'll have a great chat about.
Inshallah.
But inshallah, until then, stay tuned, guys. Thank you guys for your support every week. Make sure you guys follow, subscribe, like, and inshallah, next week we'll see you guys.